and then again, I'll stop just a few minutes before
Your
the end.
conference is being recorded.
All right, so welcome to the Lunch and Learn on Decision Making. This is the third in our three-part series on things that affect group dynamic and team cohesion most. So we had communication, taking action, and now finally decision making. So when we start to, and here's our three, right? So in communication, we looked at that we all have different needs when it comes to both giving and receiving information. Some people really like to talk in person. Some people prefer to communicate over email. Some people are quick to connect. Other people are more reserved. And how all of that can really impact the way that we communicate with each other. And jumping to the bottom there, last month we took a look at taking action and how this, in particular to me, we all think communication is kind of the biggie. I'll be honest with you, I think taking action, especially from a team perspective, has a huge impact because some of us are really quick to jump to action. We move quickly, we're proactive, we jump right in there. While others are more slow, more thoughtful, let's take some time, let's look at it. And there can be a big disconnect there for people. So really understanding how the people that you work with approach taking action can really shed a lot of light on why they do what they do. So then finally today, the third piece of the puzzle, we're going to take a look at decision making. So how do I actually get to that point when I'm taking action and communicating? So when we look at decision making, what we're really looking at actually is our risk tolerance. So am I someone who is risk tolerant? I see kind of the world as, living on the bleeding edge. Risk is where opportunity lies. Or am I a risk mitigator? Am I more of a guardian? Am I really going to look to kind of assess all of the risk, knock out as much of it as I can before moving forward with my decision? Two very different ways of approaching things, two very different ways of how we assess situations, therefore make decisions, and then finally take action on them. So the cartoon here, I love this one because it's really someone who is very risk tolerant right there, right? All my decisions are really well thought out. I'm just going to throw the plane and see which basket it falls in. I might go more with my gut instinct rather than the data, right? Where the guy sitting in the chair is looking at him like he's crazy, saying, oh my gosh, how can you do it this way? We need to analyze the data. We need to assess the risk. We need to, look at what the best path is here. So two very, very different people looking at it through very different lenses, yet both important and both are needed. So jumping right in here, looking at the drive. So in the three that we've looked at, right, communication, taking action so far, we've done this. We've put it through the lens of the drive. So here, how does having high dominance affect my decision making? And I apologize for the header on that slide there. So as we remember, dominance is the drive or need to influence, right? Kind of put our stamp on things. So someone with a high level of dominance, we know them as assertive, confident, they're a self-starter, they're goal-oriented, they like to have some control over the outcome. So that's a pretty clear indicator of how do I make decisions and how do I approach risk, right? So if I'm assertive and confident, I'm going to kind of have a good idea of what I want to do and where I want to go. I'm goal-oriented, so therefore when I make decisions, they're going to be made in how can I progress this forward? And how can I have a little bit of control over the outcome? So as you can hear in this, this has a strong impact on how I make decisions, on where my dominance lies. And there's a bit of independence in there, right? You can kind of hear more about my goals and my control over the outcome there, combined with the assertiveness, the confidence, and the self-starter. If I have a high level of extroversion, I'm collaborative. I'm connective. I pride myself on being a connector of people. I'm very relationship focused. my actions and my decisions are likely going to be focused on preserving relationships. And because I am someone who talks to think, if you remember that, I talk out loud to be able to collect my thoughts, I'm going to need to talk out my decisions with people. So I am going to be collaborative. I'm going to connect with people that might have good insight. I'm definitely going to think about relationships when I'm making decisions. Who can I pull in on this? Who's got some really good ideas? Maybe I'm going to, survey people. I might put an email out to my hive. I might need to, I definitely will need to talk it out with people. So as I'm deciding, as I'm assessing that risk, I'm likely to be doing it audibly, external processing. Patience. So a high level of patience, and we know that is the drive for consistency. As someone with a high level of patience, I'm thoughtful, I'm careful, I'm responsive. I have a focus on the process, and I'm slower to jump into action, which is also an indicator that I'm going to be slower when it comes to making decisions. I really want to be thoughtful. I want to look at everything. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to look at everything that's going on. So while this doesn't necessarily directly relate to risk, it is an indication about how quickly I'm going to jump into action when it comes time to make a decision. I'm likely going to go a little bit slower and a little bit more thoughtful. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to wrap it in a process. So if I work things through step by step, I'm going to be able to get to a good decision in the end. And then finally, formality, which is the drive for rules and structure. Now, this has a strong impact on how we make decisions. I am a risk mitigator naturally. I'm a rule follower. I really prefer working inside a structure, and I need clarity, detail, and or data. So when it comes time to make a decision, I'm likely going to go to the data. I'm going to go to the research. I'm going to go to the information. This is definitely a place where I'm going to knock out any of the risk. I'd like to assess the risk. Okay, great. We know what's here. I've done this before. Once I've decided that through the data and through mitigating that risk, okay, great. Now we can move forward. So again, these are the drives on the high side and how they impact decision making. Not so much taking action, but they do impact taking action. So then when we look at the drives from the lower side, so dominance, if I have a lower level of dominance, I naturally tend to seek guidance. I really prefer harmony, and I'm team focused. So instead of being so independent in how I approach those decisions, I'm likely going to be a little bit more collaborative, or at least kind of run it up the flagpole. Hey, let me see what my boss thinks about that. That classic line of, let me run that by my supervisor. Very comfortable line for people with lower dominance, especially in an area that they are not a subject matter expert. And that's really going to play key on this. We're going to get into that in the next slide. But more and lower dominance tends to want to seek guidance or seek input on a decision. And because they prefer harmony, they don't want to make a bad decision. They don't want to make a decision that's going to upset people, and they're really very much focused on the team. With a low level of extroversion, I'm naturally more independent, analytical, and reserved. So when it comes to making a decision, I'm going to bring it back in and work with it myself, likely. I really need to think things through before I speak. So while I'm making a decision, I'm going to kind of put that through my own filters. A lot of other things at play here, but I'm not the one that's going to go to the hive. I may go to one, a subject matter expert in this, but I may not. I may actually sort of sit with it, work with it, think it through, and then come forward. When it comes to patience, a low level of patience, these people are fast-paced, they're quick to take action, they create change, and there's a sense of urgency. So when it comes to decision making, I'm pretty quick when it's time to make decisions. I'm going to jump into action once I've made that decision. I'm going to look at it through a lens of change and through a lens of a sense of urgency likely as well. So not as much about the looking through the lens of risk, but once I've looked at it through that, I'm likely going to be really quick to jump to action. So this is going to have an impact on the speed at which I make decisions. Maybe a little bit less carefully thought out, but ready to go, let's do this. And then finally, formality. Because that's the drive for rules and structure, right? This is risk intolerant. Again, my apologies there. I'm a risk mitigator. Oh, sorry, we're low. Woo, my goodness. Low side is risk tolerant. I'm unconfined, unconventional. I'm comfortable with ambiguity. So I'm really comfortable out here in the gray space. This is that person where that risk equals reward. I might not even see things as risky that other people would. I'm just going to go for it. Let's figure it out on the way. No big deal. Really kind of unconfined, unconventional. I'm a little bit more relaxed when it comes to the repercussions because I'm not so beholden to the rules. So I look through the lens of risk equals opportunity rather than it being something that needs to be mitigated or dealt with. So as you can see, that formality there absolutely has a very strong impact on how we make decisions, right? That's our risk filter. And I'm going to tell you that dominance is the other one that has a really strong impact on it. So when we look at that factor combination, our AD factor combination here, it's going to let us know whether we're comfortable or cautious with risk. Lets us know our perception of risk, how we make decisions, and how we approach those rules and processes. So for any of you that have been through training, you'll likely recognize this slide. And you'll also remember that with each tick mark, these have an impact on each other. And I can't go so deep today, but I think the best way to understand this relationship is the A is the gas pedal and the D is the brake. So the A wants to drive and the D wants to slow everything down. So if you've got someone who's built like the pattern on the left there, they're incredibly comfortable with risk. They absolutely see risk as that opportunity. They really think it's fun. The riskier, the better. So they're going to make a decision very easily. They could come to that decision quickly, and then that patience is just going to intensify that, right? So if I've got lower patience, I'm going to go even faster into that decision, and then the action after that decision. I really don't need a whole lot of rules or information or data. Those rules are kind of just suggestions. Like, I'll do my best to stay within the bumpers, but if there's a great opportunity outside of that, I'm going to find a way around it. So I tend to be much more of a generalist, right? Really looking through the lens of risk being reward. Kind of what you want to think of here. Risk is reward. So when we look through the lens of the person on the left who is cautious with risk, right? So more foot on the gas, on the brake pedal than on the gas. Their entire job is to mitigate and protect. Now, that worrisomeness is a really good thing in this case, right? So if this person is your controller, that's a great thing, right? This person is in accounting or something through which we really want to make sure that all of the risk has been assessed. An underwriter, great decision making for those roles, right? I'm careful, I'm cautious when I'm looking at these things. I want to make sure that I've thought of everything that can happen here. We're going to assess each scenario. I'm going to look through the data. We're going to make sure that we're protected on this. And that's absolutely something that you need sometimes, right? So both are needed. That person on the right has that strong need for those rules, that clarity around the rules especially as well. Much more of a specialist, looking at things through a very granular way. Now with each move of the A and the D, It's like one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake as they move, right? So that dance there. So just remember, these are both of the extremes of this. But really looking at one person seeing risk equals reward, and the other person looking at it as risk needs to be managed. So when you've got these two people on a team together, they're both going to bring forward two vastly different points of view, which is really important, right? So when we're looking at the teamwork styles, and again, this is decision making, not taking action, you want to know, where are we as a team when it comes to making decisions? So are we justifiers, where we just kind of make the decision and justify it after the fact? We've got a couple of those in this group. Or are we more conforming, that there is a correct way to do it, that there's what, that's how we're doing things. I conform to the rules that are established. So I highly suggest that you go in and play around with the teamwork styles in the system to see how your teams and groups and possibly even company are built, right? Who are we as a team on how we make our decisions? And understanding that those two people that are at each extreme there are both bringing really valuable things to the table, even though they're completely opposite from one another. They're there to balance each other. So if you've got one person who's your risk mitigator, they're going to make sure that that opportunist over there, that risk opportunity person, doesn't land in jail. So sales team's great to have someone on the inside helping you out, watching and making sure that you're staying within the line. So again, helping you use the teamwork styles through how do we make decisions. Now looking at it through simply managing people. So this person is, this is the manager strategy guide on how to manage the risk mitigator. So especially if you're not so much of a risk mitigator, right? If you're a little bit more comfortable with that gray and that ambiguous, you may not fully understand that this person really needs that clear, concise goals, explicit communication about those expectations. They're really looking to you to guide them on decisions. Now remember I said, when someone becomes a subject matter expert, that's going to shift a little bit. But in the beginning, the people that are more of the risk mitigators, really, when it comes down to making decisions, unless they are the subject matter expert at it, unless they've made this decision before and it's worked out okay, they're likely not to want to make that final decision, especially if it's a really important one. They're going to go back to their supervisor or whomever on the team is someone who can give final weight in on that. Now, I'm not saying that they're not capable of making decisions. Absolutely, we are all capable of making decisions. But when it comes down to it, the preference is, hey, I've done all this research. I've brought forward all of the detail. I've mitigated all the risks. This is what I think we should do, but I'm going to run it up to you. So when you're managing that person, understand that if it's new information, if it's outside their comfort zone, they're going to need more support when it comes to those final decisions. If they're comfortable in it and they've done it before, not a problem. But understanding the difference. So if you've been working with them a long time, comfortable making decisions, but all of a sudden you've got a new product, you're doing something new, refer to this to understand how that's going to work under times of stress and pressure and newness. And really building for this person a supportive environment where they feel comfortable asking for help. One of the things that we can do is, if you're someone who's really comfortable making decisions, you may automatically think that it's a reward to give your team the autonomy to make their own decisions. That actually can put a whole lot of stress and pressure on someone who's not built like that, where they really don't want to make that final decision and they'd really like to just do the research and give a suggestion, and it's great if you agree with it. But building that supportive environment where they can come and ask for your advice on it is really very important. And then flip side. So here we have the one where risk is opportunity. Like, bring it on, no big deal, don't fence me in, right? So for this person, exact opposite. You've got to give them the opportunity to make decisions. Even if it's a lower level position, really start grooming them to start making some of the smaller decisions and build on that. Letting go some of the authority and some of the autonomy as a manager to let them spread their wings as a decision maker is really going to make them feel connected to the job and connected to you and well managed. They need minimal oversight with it as well. They really kind of want to do it their own way or figure it out. The lower that formality goes, the less they want to know how it was done in the past. Let them dive in, figure it out. If it's okay in whatever's happening to kind of make some low-level mistakes, let them make some little mistakes and figure it out. Not going to stop them. They're going to just pick right back up, keep moving forward, no big deal. Now, obviously, if the mistakes will cost the company money or impact anything, not the greatest idea. But if you have the capacity to kind of let them fumble a little bit, this particular pattern really appreciates that. There's growth in there, and being able to figure it out and not being so fenced in and deciding and making those decisions and figuring out if it was the right one or the wrong one is really helpful for their growth. Whereas, as we kind of learned with the last one, I like my rules. Tell me what's expected. I will work with inside that. I don't want to figure it out on my own. I don't want to get it wrong. So really understanding when it comes to decision making, some people want to kind of make a bad decision and learn from it, and others really don't. And being able to provide as a manager space for both, for the right people. So again, these are the really good tool to understand how your people work. And this isn't just as a manager. You can actually use these for peer-to-peer. Really great tool to have people on a team understand, oh gosh, wow, I like making decisions. You don't really. Why don't you do research? We'll get together. We'll talk through what you've come up with, and I'll make a final call on it. That actually can work really well when you've got, peers working together and really allowing each of them to do what's best. And if someone's not as comfortable making a decision, don't force them to, or coach them into how to do it best. And then finally, the relationship guide with our two people here, with our risk mitigator and our risk opportunist. Understanding that sometimes these are great together and sometimes they fully just don't understand each other. Really getting both perspectives can be very positive for team and group work, and understanding each of their strengths and not expecting one to be just like the other, right? So utilizing one person's focus to detail and really fleshing out all of those places where those risks might be, and then allowing the other big picture person to say, yeah, but that's okay, we're going to figure it out. This one's not as important, maybe that one is. So really understanding how those two people work together and coming maybe to the right decision depending on what's in front of you. And then we have the reference profiles that give you really good information on how someone makes a decision. So this here, the Guardian, is our ultimate risk mitigator. These are people that are going to look for consensus, follow the book, right? That's how they make their decisions. They're not going to do so well in ambiguous situations. When it's time for them to make a decision, you need to give them as much clarity as possible. Help them find the data and the clarity inside of it. So really kind of using these reference profiles to look at decision making. There's a whole section there for that. And then finally here is the PI pattern insight. So when you search the person's name, right, the detail page comes up. I've put red stars here on the 3 that are the most impactful for decision making. Go right into that AD relationship. Now these are the insights for our maverick, our risk opportunist here. So really independent, individualist, and self-confident. I'm going to remember now, okay, great. I am comfortable with risk. I am comfortable making decisions. I need some independence and to be able to spread my wings on making decisions. So those are the places in the system that you can look, but really understanding that AD relationship is the most important when we're looking at how someone's going to make a decision, because really decisions come from risk mitigation. Do I see risk as an opportunity, or do I see risk as something to be mitigated? So the system resources that we use today are the team work style, the relationship guide, the management strategy guide, reference profiles, and pattern insights. If you aren't familiar with any of those, please reach out to me. I'm happy to walk you through, or have Amy walk you through the system and look at all those tools. Lunch and learns are a little wonky due to holidays and some scheduling. So the one today, and then we have another one in November 29th, the Thursday after Thanksgiving. And the topic on that is TBD. So still coming up with that. If you have thoughts on things that you'd like to know, absolutely reach out to me and let me know, like, hey, I'd really love to learn more about this next month. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now for any questions.